I know. Hello and welcome, a very warm welcome to Business Plus here on News 9 Live. I'm Krishna Kumar and I'm being joined in the studios by my good friend and colleague Karthik Malhotra and Suyash Maheshwari. Thank you, Karthik and Suyash, for joining us. And before we begin this evening edition of Business News Updates here on News 9 Live, which we usually do with how the markets have closed for the day, a big huge announcement hit the stock markets, and that is the listing of Reliance Group's Jio Financial Services. Suyash, the news that the markets have been waiting for ever since a month ago, the demerger of Jio Financial Services from Reliance Industries was announced, and now we know that the 21st of August is when Jio Financial Services is going to be listed as a stock. Talk to us, what is the price discovery looking like?
Yes, so Krishna, last month after the demerger, the expectation was that the stock will be listed on bourses in a span of 2 to 3 months. Now the stock is being listed prematurely. It will list on August 21, which is the upcoming Monday. Now this will also be, the listing is scheduled a day before FTSE Russell plans to drop the stock from its indices. Now currently Jio Financial Services is, the stock has been credited to the account, but you are not allowed to trade in it. So it's basically in your portfolio as a dummy ticker. Right. Now the script will be in the trade for trade segment for 10 days after its listing from August 21. Trade for trade segment is essentially a segment where the stocks which are included in that segment are subjected to additional regulations. So the stock will see a stricter regulations. The circuits will be lower compared to other stocks. Also,
basically to control volatility in a newly listed stock, right?
Yes, and all the deliveries will be on cash basis. Okay. So you can't margin trade on the stock, no FNO.
Okay, so basically from August 21st till the 30th, till the end of the month, it will be in this trade for trade segment, a small segment mainly meant for newly listed stocks with circuit filters which are very low so that to control the volatility. And then what happens post the come September 1st?
Does the price change in those 10 days?
Yes, so I mean,
so
you are allowed to
secondary price discovery before you can actually trade in the stock?
No, the stock will be available for trading, but you can only buy or sell the stock on a delivery basis. So only cash settlements are allowed in the stock.
Nice.
So that's okay. There.
So Monday.
Okay, so fair enough. Monday it happens, but I'm curious to know what happens after those 10 days. It becomes a regular stock.
It becomes a regular stock, and
what is the kind of price that you're looking at at this stage?
I mean, the price discovery was about 261.85, which was much ahead of what the market was expecting, which was about 160 to 170. So already the stock is sitting on substantial gains, and even if you look at Reliance Industries stock, it has been under pressure, but after the news came out today, it was up about 1% and it closed about 0.7% higher.
All right, hold on. We'll get into the stock market action, specific stock action in just a bit, and of course Sensex as well. We have Amit Gupta also joining us in the broadcast. But before we go to Amit, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to come to you in just a minute, Karthik. Before we move forward, there is a reason why we're discussing Jio Financial Services listing even before we discuss the broader markets for the day. The impact of it and the value unlocking of it and what it means for Reliance Group per se and investors in Indian stock markets is huge, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think, there is no denying that every time there is any announcement by Reliance, the first thing people do is go onto the ticker and check what is the stock trading at. Yeah. And every announcement that Reliance makes, whether it is retail, whether it is Jio, whether it is petroleum, whether it is anything under the sun, it's always big. It's always huge. There's always something for everybody in any announcement from Reliance.
Fair enough. Amit, what about this particular one, Jio Financial Services? Huge expectations, price discovery way above market expectations. How do you view this announcement that it's going to start in the trade for trade segment, as Suyash is telling us, from Monday onwards?
Yes, I think Jio Financial, the price discovery has sort of taken away a little bit of the premium which was expected. The earlier expectation for the stock was about 160, 190, but the hypothetical price scenario is now about 260. And remember, exchanges or rather SEBI actually made a change by which the stock will be removed from Nifty after a T+3. So 3 days after August 21st. So on 24th, the stock will be removed from Nifty. So that means a lot of the passive indices have to sell Jio Financial shares on 24th of August. So my calculation is about $500 million of total amount will be sold on 24th. So, and in any case, it remains in T2D for 10 days. So the trading will be limited, during this period. But as far as the business is concerned, I think it's a futuristic business. Right now, it's not much clarity, which business out of the Jio Financial, whether it's AMCs or insurance, how much they are able to scale it up in the coming years. But it's an exciting opportunity for the market.
Hi Amit, good evening. Karthik here. Nice to see you again after a while. But I think the deal with BlackRock is fairly significant and does give us an indicator at least that it could be in the AMC business, isn't it?
So Karthik, the joint venture is between BlackRock and Jio Financials, but they haven't got the license for the AMC yet from SEBI. I think that's going to take some time to come. At least next 1.5 years will go. Usually it takes about three and a half for the full license to come. We have seen in the recent cases like Helios and Zerodha as well. So my sense is it's the application is in process, but it would take some time before the products are actually launched in the market. And we really don't know the strategy as of now. Whether the AMC will be purely passive or a combination of passive and active. So the strategy is not clear. I don't want to jump the gun, as far as Jio Financial is concerned. I think slowly and gradually we'll come to know about their business plan. Their AGM on 28th August will be very interesting to know some details about Jio Financials and how they are laying out the roadmap of future plans in the financial services industry. It's a very well capitalized company and starting as one of the stronger players in the field. Yeah.
Say no more about the quality of capitalization of something like Jio Financial Services. Suyash, you want to ask about something?
Actually, it was a very good point that he raised, that a lot of passive funds will start selling Jio Financial Services simply because they do not have to maintain that stock, because they obviously track these indices, and since it's falling out, they will start selling these stocks. Now, one of the reasons I think why it was placed in the trade for trade segment was because the correction does not happen like the circuit limit is revised, right? So we won't see
it doesn't
any
happen
massive correction.
It wouldn't happen in one fell swoop that you sell everything one day and the stock price crashes on one day because of that. And probably in preempting this, you're saying, is the reason why it's already put in that trade for trade segment, if I'm right.
So actually, for that, Amit, where do you see the price of Jio Financial Services
settling? Eventually, it's 261 odd at this point in time.
Yeah, 261 is there, but I think the real price, price would be known after 10 days. Because the first 10 days, it's in T2T segment like any other demerged entity. The circuit filters will be 5%. So the movement will not be much. It can go either -5 or +5 from the opening price. So I think the real price discovery will happen only after 10 days. Even the fund would start interested only after 10 days. And even the traders would, who want to.
Amit, can we expect
do it till the stock is listed?
Right. Amit, can we expect any movement on the Reliance stock as well, or that story is over now? Because we've seen Reliance stock is also trading in the 2580, 2600 rupee levels, and pre-demerger was in the 2800 plus segment. So with the price discovery coming at 261 right now, it's pretty much paired itself against the Reliance stock. So is there going to be any impact whatsoever on the Reliance stock?
It was up 1% for the day, wasn't it?
It was up 1% and it spiked sharply after the news came out.
Yeah, right. I mean, there is nothing to punt on if the Jio Financial is not listed. So, Reliance is showing some signs of that. We saw even today a smart recovery from the day's low. But I think once the Jio Financial is listed, the impact of that will go away, from the Reliance share. The Reliance, the oil prices have been sort of stable. Plus, we have this windfall taxes which comes now every and then. So I think there are that business is sort of consolidating and not really on the aggressive path as such. I consider that business to be separate, which will be led by renewables in the coming 5-10 years. So I don't really mix these two segments.
And while we are talking about demerger, Amit, I can't resist asking, do you see a similar story play out for ITC as well?
Yeah, ITC Hotels is a very, very small business for the overall ITC entity. It's only 3% of their revenues, and the demerger would take about a year or maybe even more. I think the management has guided for about 15 months for the full demerger. So it's a good from a shareholder's perspective. But I don't think it really changes the gains for ITC, where there's still more than 70% of the revenues actually come from the cigarette business.
Fair enough. Now that we're getting into other stocks, Karthik, it's a good time to move away from Jio Financial Services and Reliance alone to the entire broader market. Suyash, talk to us. Consolidation time continuing in the Indian markets?
What we are seeing, Krishna, now is volatility hitting the markets, and Indian markets has been volatile for the last couple of weeks. But something that we can take comfort in is that again Nifty is managing to defend that crucial support of 19,300 levels, and now today the stock market was corrected marginally, and this was primarily due to weakness in the risk of sentiment in global equities. Also inflation has been a concern, because of which we are seeing some sort of correction over there. Nifty was down at close about 2.28% at 19,310 levels. Sensex was down 0.3%, marginally below 65,000 mark. Mid cap and small cap space also saw some correction. The small cap index was down 0.53% at 11,683, and the mid cap index was down 0.21% at 37,815 levels.
In fact, the small cap had been the outlier all this while. Ever since we've started seeing the correction in the broader markets, the small cap incidentally was one segment that continued to be in the green. And a 0.5% loss today. What does this tell us, Yash?
So actually, Karthik, if you have seen the activity in the broader markets, they have been largely choppy. One day we see the small cap and the mid cap index rising about 0.5%. The next day we see a fall. So the traders have not really found that sweet spot as far as trading is concerned in both the indices.
So are we're still looking at more volatility in the days and the weeks going forward, aren't we?
I mean, we have a myth for that.
Yeah. Amit, I don't know. I could have asked both of you this question. You're better placed, definitely. Tell us, volatility hitting Dalal Street, bear attack on Dalal Street is what it's being described. How do you see the days going forward and the weeks?
I think the kind of sharp rally which we have seen from the March lows, the volatility had to come at some point of time. I still think that India is much more insulated from as far as the domestic news is concerned, but there are clearly some worries from China and US. And the other thing is that the liquidity has been very strong in the mid cap and the small cap space. So there is too much money chasing too fewer companies. So we are seeing some overheated sectors within that mid cap and small cap space. My sense is that this volatility would continue for at least next 2 to 3 weeks. Usually this is a very less liquid time for the US markets, because there is holidays and vacations in US, which opens after the Labour's Day in September. So we'll see some more volatility happening in the markets. I think the biggest risk at this point of time is that some sort of a credit event happens in China or US, which could really rattle the markets, because right now there is a lot of profit booking happening, but there is no dumping of money which is happening. Even the FIs have been very selective in selling the stocks. But if there is a credit event happening sometime in the global markets, then we could see some more volatility and decline in the markets. Otherwise, we'll consolidate.
Amit, stay with us. Let's just get a little deeper into the markets for the day, at least. The last trading session for this week, volatile week. Suyash, tell us what were the top gainers and the losers in the trade for the day?
So, Krishna, apart from metals and media sector, most sectors saw selling. Adani Enterprises, Adani Ports in today's session continued to be among the top gainers. Adani Enterprises is on a second day of rally. Even ports, they were up about 3.68% and 3.01%. Auto stocks also saw some buying interest. Eicher Motor was up about 1.41%. Maruti Suzuki was up about 0.91%, and Britannia was up about 0.74%. Now, among losers, if you can pull that graphic up, please.
Right.
Hero MotoCorp was there. It was a top loser in today's session. It was down about 2.17%, followed by Tech Mahindra, TCS, which is because of a larger sell-off in IT stocks. So IT stocks, most IT stocks were trading in the red today. And as you can see, three heavyweights feature in the list of top losers. Infosys was another stock which is down about 1.74%. TCS is down about 1.97%. Apart from IT majors, Hindalco was another stock which featured among the losers today. It was down about 1.88%.
So this IT sell-off is again on the back of US inflation worries, rate hike worries, discretionary spending not likely to continue. Is that what is driving the sell-off in the IT stocks?
Definitely, that is there. Also, we are seeing another banking crisis brew in the US after Moody downgraded several regional banks. Fitch came out and said that it would downgrade
another 10 banks or so.
Banks, including JP Morgan and Chase.
Right.
So the BFSI segment, which has been one of the bigger clienteles for the IT industries as far as enterprise tech goes. So the expectation is that the demand would not pick up once again unless those issues are sorted first.
So Amit, talk to us about the IT sector. We've seen, none of the IT players actually being able to beat street expectations in their Q1 results just announced. And moreover, whatever discretionary spending that seemed to have kick-started again, especially the international deals being cracked by TCS and Infosys both recently, as well as HCL Tech. Is that party that short-lived?
So I think ex-AI stocks or ex-AI companies which are very heavy on artificial intelligence, IT is a tricky space to invest at this point of time. I believe there is one more quarter of earnings downgrade cycle before we can actually say that, the IT sector kind of bottoming up. And if one has to look to invest in IT sector, then it has to be, from a medium to long term perspective only. So FY25 earnings or FY26 earnings only. At this point of time, I think it's a more of a wait and watch, especially if you are in IT services, pack. So whether it is Infosys, TCS, HCL, etc. But the big money in IT over the past 6 months have been made in IT products companies, and we do have investments in those kind of companies. But the heavyweights in the Nifty, which are mostly IT services, I think there is some pain more left. And that pain can actually elongate if there is a recession kind of a situation by the end of this year. As rate hike cycle almost, we may have one or two more rate hike cycles in that way. So it can get elongated, but I think there is still at least 1 quarter of pain more there before we can say that IT services have been bottom out.
Right, Amit, stay with us. While we're discussing IT, we'll discuss another I, very important for the market, which is the primary market, the IPO market. Talk to us, what's the latest that's buzzing in that space?
So Krishna, even though the IT sector is not buzzing, IPO segment is definitely buzzing after a lull period of about 6 months from January to June, where we saw just 5 listings. There have been several listings in a span of 3 months, and even today 4 companies came out with their IPOs, including Crop Life Sciences, Pyramid Technoplast, Balaji Specialty Chemicals. And also what we are seeing is that several companies that are coming out with their IPOs are listing with heavy gains. So Concord Biotech, which opened today, now despite weak sentiment, it opened at a premium about 21%. The stock surged as much as 33% and finally settled about 27% higher.
On the day of listing. Wow.
On the day of listing.
Those who got that lot are definitely happy today.
And this is on the back of SBFC Finance, which listed earlier the week. It gained about 66% on debut day.
Incredible. Amit, quick check from you. Great time for IPOs and listing at this point in time?
Despite the markets being in the red.
Yeah, despite bearish sentiment prevailing.
Yeah, I think, given that there is a lot of liquidity coming into the markets in the mid and small cap space. So we have seen, if you see the anchor investors which are coming, most of them are either mutual funds or insurance companies or PMSs and AIFs. We already now have a 50,000 crore SIP book also. So a lot of the companies which are listed, these are sort of overvalued at this point of time, and that is giving the fund managers an opportunity through these IPOs to actually invest in some different names which are new to the markets. The listing gains have been good. But my experience is, if the market really turns around, then, these listings will not have the same impact. We have already seen it 2 years ago in 2021, where a lot of companies, especially the new age businesses, wanted to come for IPO. But once the market, turned around, then many of them, postponed their plans. So my sense is that till the liquidity is good, till the market is good, the listings will continue to
volatility is coming
attract
back to the
investors.
markets.
Yeah.
The volatility is coming back to the markets. So now that we are seeing the primary markets just starting to pick up, can we expect volatility to impede that pipeline of companies coming out with their IPOs? If the volatility persists.
Yes, it can happen. In 2021 also, we saw when the liquidity returned and the Nasdaq really went down, all the tech IPOs or the new age businesses IPOs, they got postponed. So we can have a similar situation. It really depends on, how the global markets turn up. Because eventually you need good liquidity to come into the IPOs to invest into the market. If the market sentiment is not good, then I don't see IPOs getting listed so often.
Absolutely, especially Indian markets where so much of it comes from FPIs and FIIs in the Indian market. Global sentiment will play a crucial role. Thank you, Amit, for joining us on this evening's edition of Business Plus. Karthik, it's a good time then to move away from the markets and all the listing and the IPO. We began with that big listing that come Monday morning that we will be, keeping a close watch of Jio Financial Services. But this show is not just about the markets, Karthik, and we make that very clear every single evening and every single morning.
We try to.
and it's because, we do markets because, people watching us, can find ways to make money, to create wealth. The same people who are out there to create wealth and success and, welfare for their families really don't want to be buggered with some really pesky calls on their phones, spams that hit our phones repeatedly. So an issue that is now of national importance, Karthik, and if it is of national importance, of importance to every citizen across the country, we are taking it up over here. It's a very important issue because it has got all to do with a very important industry, and that's the telecom industry. And that's the reason why we here at Business Plus are running the Spam Free India campaign, and today we have a very special story that we're taking up under the Spam Free India campaign. Right, Karthik, we've seen multiple measures being taken by the government. You're talking about verification of consent given by a digital portal where you can go and give a consent for you to get calls from a particular place or not. The onus is being given on the consumer, the person, the people. They can do it. In the latest, in that series of measures being taken by the government to block spam calls, you have now SIM card dealer verification. Every person, every shop that's selling SIM cards has to be government verified. And also they can't be giving out bulk connections, SIM cards in bulk, a huge measure in terms of checking fraud and fraudulent calls. This at a time when they've actually blocked 66,000 numbers, WhatsApp numbers, 66,000 numbers have been blocked by the government because they're spam, and that includes 17,000 mobile handsets as well.
That's right.
So big moves to make India spam free.
I don't want to sound like a pessimist, which I usually am, unfortunately. But, my fear is that there's great intentions, great practices, great action points often falter at execution. And that continues to be my fear. But let's hope this fear does not really lead to any sort of fruition, and there is something positive that comes out of the real crackdown that the government is trying hard to do, not just on pesky calls, but indeed on fraudulent activities conducted by scamsters, and not just spamsters, by scamsters literally, using connections that they got on a fake KYC, changing numbers as frequently as they possibly can, and using the same handsets by inserting multiple SIMs, multiple numbers, and using always a different number to call the same person. So eventually I think it should all lead to hopefully some real major crackdown on this menace of spam calls as well as scam calls. But let's look at all the news that has come in, all the data, all the information that has come in, especially from, no one less than the IT Minister, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav himself yesterday. And let's pull up those graphics here, and let me just take you through some of them. Bulk sales of SIM cards, like you mentioned, have been barred.
Yeah.
Mandatory registration of agents, of point of sale salespeople, of distributors of SIM cards, pretty much the works. So there is mandatory registration, and this registration has to happen with the telcos. It cannot be one little kirana store buying bulk SIM cards from somewhere, selling it, with no trace. He might have his own KYC and his own PAN, Aadhaar, etc., but he has to be specifically registered with the telcos. Now, this registration also entails police verification. You can't just do a simple Aadhaar-based, PAN card-based verification. It has to actually be police verified. So every distributor out there has got to have a clear-cut formal police verification. Now, these agents and the telcos themselves have been given 12 months to comply with this. So this process has to initiate immediately, kickstart immediately, 12 months until this registration actually gets completed. Now, let's move on and let's look at some other data that has emerged. Now, what are the new KYC rules? Very important. Up until now, a corporation would, any large company, 100, 200 employees, would have a bulk deal with a telco, take SIM cards from them, distribute them for official purposes to their employees. Now, every end user of every single number, even if it's a corporate connection, has to be KYC approved. Add to that, physical verification of office premises, physical verification of every address given by a corporation to buy these bulk numbers from a telco directly needs to be done. So, you can't just give any random address. There is going to be a physical verification of the premises that you operate from. And in addition to the regular KYC, which is Aadhaar based, there is going to be facial recognition as well when it comes to doing this KYC. Very importantly, let's look at actually exactly what the Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said. Before that, this is an important point again, that an individual can buy up to 9 numbers using the same KYC. So this is what the minister said. He said earlier people used to buy SIM cards in bulk. However, it's been decided to end that provision. Instead, we'll bring a proper business connection provision, which he says will help in stopping fraudulent calls. Right, an important step, important measure coming in a very, very timely manner. Very quickly, if we can just look at the crackdown that has happened using, let's say, the Sanchar Sathi, which was the initiative the government launched in the month of May. Some great progress there. You mentioned a few numbers. 6.6 million illegal connections have been detected using Sanchar Sathi, which actually deploys AI, artificial intelligence, to understand whether a number being used and the number of calls being made and the diversity to which those calls are being made. Does it look like a human? Does it look like a real caller? Does it look like perhaps, somebody who's engaging in spam or scam calls? 5.2 million of that 6.6 connections have actually been discontinued. They've been disconnected. So the government has actually gotten rid of 5.2 million scamsters so far, at least numbers used by scamsters. 67,000 sellers of bulk SIM cards have been blocked. 17,000 handsets, you mentioned this, are no longer in existence. They've been blocked. And here comes the big one, the WhatsApp number. 66,000 WhatsApp accounts have also been blocked, and 800,000 accounts used by fraudsters by way of UPI or payment wallets have also been frozen. So yes, finally there seems to be some massive crackdown. At least the numbers are showing up well this time around, despite me being a pessimist.
Yeah, numbers are showing up well. We have Mr. Sandeep Bhargava, former EVP Vodafone Idea Limited and currently founder and CEO of Leap EdTech, joining us. Sir, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on Business Plus. Those numbers tell me two things. One is that 800,000 is the ones that have been found out. How many out there are there that have yet to be found out already? So my point here, my question to you is that do you think enough is being done? What is your take on the measures to block the bulk sale of SIM cards and also make sure every single SIM card seller in this country is verified?
I think this is a great step taken by the government. And as you rightly pointed out, this is the second set of reforms which have come in place after the May ones. And the numbers are speaking for themselves. The kind of accounts blocked, the the connections are disconnected, the point of sale, the complaints which have been handled, almost 1.8 million subscriber complaints have been handled, lost phones have been recovered back. So you see, there has been action and there has been a proof that yes, these measures have been very, very strong. Now, coming back to the today's reforms which have been announced by the Honorable Minister, I think we are going to get much more spam-free and scam-free, as you rightly pointed out, Karthik, to move on with the operators. So, operators may have a challenge, but definitely the kind of business, illegal business that happens troubling the citizens of the country, that needs to be plugged as well. So, it's not only the profits or the services by the operators, but they need to ensure that every citizen in this country is not defrauded of their hard-earned monies, basically.
Right, but Karthik here gave us all those numbers and said that, like, despite the fact that so much has been found out, he doesn't feel that the measures taken so far are enough, really, in terms of the larger problem at hand. In the sense that you have these daggers in the way to stop spam calls from reaching you, but you and I both know we're far away from not getting those pesky calls.
Sandeep, my point really being that despite these guardrails being set up, we as decision makers, policy makers, telco operators have always been a few steps behind the fraudsters, the scamsters.
Yeah.
They found a crack well before we found an antidote to that scam. What is preventing them to come up with newer, more unique, more sort of innovative, creative ways of bypassing the system? And KYC, etc., we know how
easily
difficult or how easy it is to get through those guardrails.
So just a moment, you pause and see that recently we have been, the Parliament has passed the DPDP Act. So that will also act as a deterrent, and with high penalties in place, will stop these and help them in the cause which are the frauds are picked up. Because now you have a circumference of measures being taken by the government. They are circular in nature. You have these verification of these people. You have the DPDP Act coming in place. You have the measures of way which are in place. So all these will combine together, will have a major effect. And on top of it, I think the very important aspect has to be to educate the individuals of not letting the numbers let loose the way they just keep on handing over wherever they go. So it is upon individuals as such to take certain measures and ensure that we don't give our numbers left and right to all across the places. So we are also an important element, and moreover, the operators have to carry out certain educational programs, or the associations also have to bring in where you are not sharing your numbers so easily.
But
so
Sandeep,
from a technology perspective, yeah, please.
Sandeep, I have a fundamental challenge with the whole approach taken by the government, which seems to be directed specifically at the sellers, or if I can say the resellers of the numbers. Why is there not still enough accountability resting with the telcos themselves? Because at the end of the day, they need to be custodians of the data, and not just the data that they get, but also the data and the KYC and the whole identification of the end user of the numbers issued by them. I mean, you can stop a seller from selling in bulk. You can also have the seller debarred. You can have the seller blacklisted for 3 years, penal action up to 10 lakh rupees. All that on the seller. Why is there not enough being done right at the level of the telco? Why can't the telcos themselves be challenged and penalized for any spam call, scam call coming using a number issued by them?
So just a moment now, if you see the regulations, there is an agreement between the seller and the telco. So do you think that if there is a seller creating a problem, the telco will get scot-free? So the agreement is between the two, and if there is anything wrong being done by the seller, ultimately it falls back to the telco because the agreement is with them.
Agreement is with the telco, but the agreement, from my reading, my understanding, suggests that the seller may be barred for a period of 3 years, may be blacklisted by the telco. What happens to the telco?
So if suppose you have 100 or 100,000 people getting affected from a particular telco, ultimately the responsibility or the point will be towards the telco only, no? So sellers is the mindset which they create all these fundamentals to make fast money, and then they want to earn fast. But ultimately it's a loophole in the telco's operations as well. They need to be controlled. So directly, indirectly, it will fall back to them. Cannot go scot-free.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's directly and not very indirectly, because there has to be some sizable action taken on telcos, I feel. Through the sellers being delisted, blacklisted, all of that, great. But I think there has to be something very concrete coming out against telcos themselves as well.
So we have not seen the fine print of the agreement. I am sure we will find something out there. So let's wait for the agreement also to come in, that what lies, because agreement is between two parties and it cannot be one-sided only with the seller. So I'm sure they will be binding both of the entities when the agreement is to be signed. Let's see the language of the agreement.
As you gentlemen are discussing the responsibility that needs to lie with telecom companies, all I can think of is with what the telecom industry is going through. Right now the focus is probably on profitability and making sure there's no tax burden. Then figuring out whether their systems are good enough to avoid
spam
spam
telcos,
calls.
it's pure play survival. Look at Vodafone, for example.
I was just about to say
survival, profitability, ARPU, all of that can come later. Let's just breathe oxygen.
Yeah, so I mean, in this stage, one last question before I let you go, Mr. Bhargava. Are telecom companies, well placed to deal with, to take up responsibility of cleaning up the spam call menace in the first place?
So it's a primary business. So don't think that they are there to make all these numbers just to add to their profits. They have other responsibility as well. So I'm sure they have to have a cleanup operation. When it comes to a mandate, they need to follow it. They can't just be away from that.
Okay.
So they have to come across and see the past also. There are many security policies adopted in 2010 and 12. And see, the network has really become devoid of those. We are much better off what it used to be.
Right.
So slowly, every step what an operator takes, these scamsters and the people who create spam calls go much ahead of it. So definitely there has to be a balance, and I'm sure with these steps that balance will be struck.
Right. We will hope for a better future at this stage, and we'll wait for the fine print on all the policies that the government is making. But for now, Mr. Sandeep Bhargava, former EVP, Vodafone Idea Limited, and currently founder and CEO of Leap EdTech. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here, sir, and be part of our Spam-Free India campaign here on News
Look forward.
Live.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So spam-free India, and we're still sticking with the people and the problems that the people that have, Karthik.
Money problems, making money, losing money, forgetting money.
So, first of all, saving your money, protecting it from all the scams and the spams that you get on your phone. And then, of course, once you protected it, you have to make sure that wherever you protect it and put it, you have to go there and collect it. Many a time, which we don't realize, Karthik, when I first came upon this story, I was like, how much of it does it happen to the point where the government has to take action? Now, the news at least is simple. The Reserve Bank of India has now set up a web service, a web portal called, it's pronounced, we can pronounce it as UDGAM. UDGAM, as the case may be, UDGAM, Unclaimed Deposits Gateway to Access Information. Unclaimed Deposits Gateway to Access Information. Am I getting it right, Karthik?
Absolutely.
Right. So that's UDGAM.
So UDGAI would have been more realistic, but information, they've picked up the M instead of the I from information.
Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that.
UDGAI would have been a better acronym.
UDGAI, that would have been a good guy. So, anyway, fact of the matter is that this web service has been launched. It's supposed to help people recover their deposits across banks and across any financial institution where they have put in money. One portal for it, and I want to understand how much this is going to help. We have somebody joining us to help us talk us through this as well. We have Mr. Ravi Sutanjani Kumar, former Vice President, Partnership Special Projects Test Book, now joining us. Ravi, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here on News 9 Live. If you can just help us understand, how does UDGAM work exactly, and more importantly, how important do you view this?
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be again on the show. Thanks once again, Karthik, for having me. So I think this is a very progressive development. RBI has already initiated 100 days and campaign in the month of May. But there was no centralized system, so this is going to be absolutely beneficiary. From the first, what we are able to see is that the UDGAM centralized portal will give access to people where you can check for unclaimed deposit in savings account and also in FDs by entering certain details. You just need to enter the name, of the beneficiary or account holder, then you have to enter one of the parameters. It can be ID, it can be date of birth. Post entering the details, appropriate details will be popped up, and you can download the reference number later, and you can visit to the nearest bank, whatever is the concerning branch, to claim the money in case if you are the eligible beneficiary. But it's one very important step towards transparency. This is what we are hearing from the community and also across the investors. It was a long due pain. As per reports, there are more than 35,000 crore rupees lying with banks in dormant accounts, right? So money should reach to the concerned beneficiary, and there has to be a centralized portal. So as of now, there are 7 to 8 banks that is currently live on the RBI UDGAM portal. In coming days, more and more banks will be added. So this is what we are able to understand till date. Yeah.
Ravi, you are obviously very well followed on social media, on X specifically, earlier referred to as Twitter, now called X. I just want to understand from you, a very basic problem that citizens often face when they're availing of any of these digital public goods, as they are referred to now, or any government-driven, portals, websites, apps, are the glitches. We saw when the IT income tax website was being redone by Infosys, multiple glitches. We've seen EPFO. It's almost always been impossible to navigate and get your job done. So you've done a nice long thread on X about, I don't know if it's still called thread, by the way, about a step-by-step approach of how to actually repatriate yourself with the money that has been unclaimed by you. Any glitches that you faced, and parallelly any success stories by way of conversations in that thread of yours, if it's still called that, on people who have actually been able to access some unclaimed money?
Very nice. So I would love to, call it Twitter or / threads only. To be very specific, I am honestly impressed by the development of this particular portal which is concerned. I honestly found it very easy to navigate with easy UX. At the same time, there has been success stories as well. I mean, yesterday only someone came to my DMs and said that, okay, I was able to track unclaimed money, and there are 2-3 more professionals on Twitter itself who break down the entire development, and comments are flooded with some positive reviews that, okay, I did not know, but with some advanced query, I am able to find that, okay, there is some money lying in my Dadaji's bank account. Similarly, I think there is one major point that I think we need to discuss and understand is that a lot of these monies are lying in public sector banks, and majority of the people are not, it's going to be a lot of awareness and marketing campaigns by RBI from time to time via digital channels, where people should be aware. That is A. But as you correctly mentioned, not everyone would be digital savvy. I'm already seeing some, posters and banners across some cyber cafes, where these cafes are going to facilitate near to bank branches that, okay, if you are willing to search, you can come to this cyber cafe and we will help you, navigate through it. So it's going to be a long journey ahead. I think this is just a start. We'll see further development. But as of now, even if you need, once you have the information, you still need to go to the concerned base branch with all those documents. It's just a discovery platform as of now. So there is nothing more that you can do apart from discovery at present.
All right, let's then discuss that. So right now, the UDGAM portal will only help you discover. It's saying that, like, you have 5 unclaimed deposits. Okay, in these banks you have so much money.
7 banks right now, all PSU banks on the UDGAM portal disclosing their data. Yeah.
So that all you get is data. You don't get the money actually, do you? What do you need to do to actually go and get the money once you've located it?
So if you understand the problem statement first, I think in the last 4 or 5 years since I have been tracking the industry, this is a very big problem statement that people were not even aware. So we needed to solve the discovery problem first, and I think this is where regulator has done the job. I think it's going to be in the interest of public itself. At least now you would know that, okay, if there was a dormant account in my name or maybe someone from my family, and if I am eligible beneficiary, in my fingerprints on one centralized portal across all banks, I am actually able to face the information, and later on I can do the due diligence and the further paperwork with the bank. Another point I think we should also discuss is that you don't need to search with a specific bank one by one. That means whatever the number of live banks are available in the database, you can select all of them in one go. You can enter the information, name, date of birth, identity number, and everything. Even there are advanced search criteria like PIN code and address. With these inputs, you will be able to fetch, okay, if this person has dormant account in 3 bank account, you will be able to get those letters and data into a single portal. So that is something that is actually going to be beneficial for a lot of consumers.
Fair enough. The step number 1 is discovery. and now we have a portal for discovery. Fair enough, point taken. I'm just asking now, say I use that portal tomorrow and I've discovered three separate bank accounts that, put total 50 lakhs for me. I wish. So quickly, I have to go quickly go get that. How simple is that process right now, or are we, we're far away from fixing that process?
So, discovery was there, I think, but it was not centralized, to be honest. If you needed to search for, say, a specific account, you could directly visit to the branch, or there are, a specific portal or maybe PDFs that you get on bank's website. As of now, once you have the relevant information, there is also a landing page of the concerned banks on the portal itself. Once you click on those links, it will take you to the bank's, URL or landing page for the more information. In there, you can download the form, get more information, how to access that money and what are all the documents you need. And later on, with the coordination of the concerned branch officials, you will be able to claim that money in case if you are the eligible beneficiary. But as of now, yes, discovery is one thing, and in order to claim the money, you still need to visit the bank for due
diligence. There's discovery. So
absolutely. That point is well taken, Mr. Ravi Sutanjani, that this was a two-pronged problem. First, people did not know how much of their money lay unclaimed in deposits. That's the reason why 35,000 crore rupees are unclaimed deposits in Indian banks.
And this number incidentally has gone up successively over the last 10 years or so, except that apparently there has been a slight dip between the data from last year and this year. The data last year was at about 48,000 crores or so. Is that right? Yeah, about 48,200 crores. But as of February this year, in the PSU banks, which is about 87% as we saw in the pie earlier, that number has come down to about 35,000 crore rupees. So I think near about 43,000 crores is what seems to be in the unclaimed deposits kitty with the RBI right now.
That's a whole lot of money that Indians should access and bring it back into their accounts, and people like Ravi Sutanjani will help many, especially on X, formerly known as Twitter, with the kind of following that he has.
Or on our show, hey, why X?
Or on our show. So watch our show, retweet it on Twitter along with Mr. Ravi Sutanjani as well. Ravi Sutanjani, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for taking time out to help us explain everything here on News 9 Live. And with that, we've completely run out of time here on the show as well. Thank you all of you for watching. Thank you, Karthik, for joining us as well. So wrap here from my side. Krishna Kumar signing off. Keep it with News 9 Live.
BrahMos, stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China's navy has threatened its neighbors, and they are turning to the BrahMos for protection. The Warship Killer. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Pakistan is actually genociding Baloch people. So being Baloch is a crime. If you are a Baloch, it means in the eyes of Pakistan, you don't have any right to live.
The Chinese and Pakistanis are colonizing the Baloch and exploiting their resources.
The Baloch armed struggle will continue unless China withdraws, Pakistan military withdraws from Balochistan, and give Baloch complete authority to decide for themselves.
The Baloch feel that if they don't act now, they will become marginalized.
What lies ahead for Balochistan?
Balochistan, Bangladesh 2.0, streaming now.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2. No end in sight. Streaming now.
Well, at the moment, film industry is figuring out where it is standing because lots of things are not working, lots of formulas are not working.
They have lost touch with their audience.
We have to invest more in storytellers, we have to invest more in scripting.
Is OTT eating into, is it taking care of your entertaining consumption needs? Of course it is.
You know, people, they want to see something fresh, something original. See the content of our film and say, oh my God, what was this? So that's the reason why Hindi films are failing and failing miserably.
2022 saw some of the most anticipated films flop at the box office, despite big budgets and tremendous star power, leaving the Hindi film industry in a tizzy. The first 6 months of 2023 haven't been any better. Most of the films have failed to recover even the cost of making. The big duds of 2023 include Shehzada, Akshay Kumar's Selfie, and Vishal Bharadwaj's Kutte. The only successes this year have been Pathan, The Kerala Story, and more recently, Zara Hatke, Zara Bachke. There seems to be a big disconnect between what the audiences want and what the filmmakers are making.
They have lost touch with their audience. They don't know what is reality and what is not. They live in their own world, in their echo chambers, and they start believing in it. The world has moved on. Just imagine, 3-4 years ago, a child who was 12 years old is today 16-17 years old. In these last 4 years, he has also witnessed the shutting down of the entire world. This 15-16-year-old boy or a girl, so many times the thought must have crossed his mind, what if my parents are not alive tomorrow? What will happen to future? He is more matured than a normal, typical 17-year-old. And today he's an adult, he's 18-year-old, he's making his choices. And his choices, please don't fool around with me. Establish credibility first and then you come and tell me your story. So it's very important that the discrepancy between the maker and the product and the film is not too wide. You should also behave like or respect at least what you're making. And that is where I think the whole problem lies.
The success rate is very, very low, extremely low. Have we lost connect with the audience? Yes. I think we've lost connect with the audience. We've lost the audience also because somewhere down the line we have not been giving them what they expect from us, and that is entertainment. We've been making movies targeting the Bandra to Versova crowd, and that's the reason why